Good morning. My name is Paul Schwartz, and I'm here as a representative of the Textile Museum in Washington, D.C. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Textile Museum, but we're located up on S Street in the Embassy area, quite a distance from here in Provo, Utah. But our goal is to expand the public's knowledge and appreciation on a local and international and national scale of the artistic merit and cultural importance of the world's textiles. Our museum was founded in 1925 by a gentleman named George Hewitt Myers. He was an avid collector and scholar of textiles, and he anticipated that his house and an adjoining gallery would be an international center for the exhibition, the study, and collection and preservation of the textile arts. So we are so delighted to be here to be a part of this exhibition and to share our vision with you and with the audience here in Provo. Myers originally formed his collection with only 275 rugs and some 60 related materials, and that was back in 1925. Today, the museum's collection numbers some 19,000 objects that date from 3000 BC to the present, and we have some of the finest examples of rugs, textiles, and related materials from all over the world, really. In particular, however, we have an extraordinary holdings of Oriental carpets and early Islamic and Coptic textiles, many of which rank among the finest in the world. I'm pleased to report that many of our masterpieces have been selected by Sabiha and are on display here in Utah today as part of the Beauty and Belief exhibition. I think it's fair to say, and I'm going to stretch it here by referencing a piece of modern culture that Sabiha chose wisely. And if you don't know where that's from, I'll tell you later on. Let me speak to you briefly about a couple of the pieces that are in the exhibition, though. Sabiha selected a textile that contains an Arab inscription that translates in part as, quote, "In the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate," unquote, and references the reign of a caliphate long ago. Woven in Egypt during the Fatimid period, about 909 to 1171, this textile dates from basically the year 1000. It's one example of the museum's roughly 300-piece collection of these type of textiles, which are basically inscriptions, embroidered inscriptions onto pieces of linen, often worn as armbands and often as decoration in later times. That collection is just part of the museum's some 800 pieces of early Islamic textiles dating from the 8th to the 14th century. Second, you'll see that Sabiha selected an Egyptian Mamluk rug. These are very unusual rugs. They date from roughly the year 1500. They have red, they have green, they have blue in them, and lots of palm and cypress trees. We were talking earlier that there are a couple of these on exhibit today up at the Metropolitan Museum in New York in their newly opened Islamic galleries. This carpet is one of some 15 in the museum's collection. Our collection of Mamluks is among the largest in the world. We think we have about half the extant examples. And Sabiha has certainly picked a marvelous piece to show you here today. And last, I wanted to talk about one piece that she selected, which struck me in particular. It's an early 17th century rug. It has columns forming a gate. It's on the website advertising this exhibition as one of the highlights of the exhibition. And the rug was originally woven in a court-controlled studio in Cairo, Egypt, to be used as a curtain in the ark of a synagogue. I thought this most unusual. The inscription reads, quote, in Hebrew, "This is the gate of the Lord. Through it the righteous enter," unquote. I looked up the piece on the internet, and with the help of some people at the Textile Museum, got a little background for this piece that I wanted to share with you. And there's a book that talks about these pieces, from which I'd like to take a quote that I've mangled a little bit for the purpose of today's meeting. It says, quote, "The artistic forms shared between the Muslim prayer mat and the Jewish Torah ark curtain, which this rug was designed to be, are no coincidence. For they indicate a vocabulary of symbolism, the shared meaning of door-like forms. They indicate a gateway to heaven and lamps and light as a metaphor for God," unquote. I was struck by this piece because how could you find a better piece to bridge the arts of Islamic culture, and today's issues surrounding us in the world. This is a textile that's more than 500 years old and yet does just that. I also mention these three pieces because all three were collected by George Hewitt Myers at a time when Islamic textiles were not very popular. They all really date from the first half or so in his collecting history of the 20th century, 1900 to 1950, roughly. Mr. Myers was clearly ahead of his time. And on another note, it's delightful to see our pieces here in Utah, as I mentioned earlier, here on the campus of BYU. Our museum has always felt a close kinship to scholarship and education, both inside and outside the university world, and we are so pleased to be able to share it here today. In furtherance of this thinking, and as a little ad for our museum, I wanted to mention that we recently announced an affiliation with the George Washington University there in Washington, D.C., where our collection is going to be the cornerstone of a newly constructed museum on the campus of the university. It's going to be an unprecedented arrangement between an existing museum and a university, and it promises to expand, just as this exhibition will, the reach of the rich tradition of textiles in art, scholarship, education, cultural understanding, and its integration into the academic community. We're looking forward to the expanded educational and scholarship opportunities that will afford. So in conclusion, I hope that after visiting here, you'll come see us in Washington, D.C., whether on our existing facilities, which are on S Street in D.C., or when we open our new facilities on the George Washington University campus in the fall of 2014. And once again, thanks to everyone for making our pieces part of this fantastic exhibition. Thank you.